Do you vow to spend the rest of your life with the woman before you? He didn't answer. I spoke up for him instead. He doesn't. The crowd erupted in shock. I added, what a coincidence. I don't either. Chapter 1. When Marcel took my hand from my father's, his gaze drifted toward the seats below the stage. Following his line of sight, I saw Rowena. I remained silent, pretending not to notice. The officiant's solemn voice rang in my ears. Mr. Marcel, do you vow to take Miss Margarita as your lawfully wedded wife? As her husband, do you promise to love her, protect her, and support her through all of life's trials, in prosperity and adversity, in wealth and poverty, for all of your days together? Do you? Marcel pressed his lips together. Still silent, his gaze fell on Rowena once more. The officiant repeated the question. Marcel still didn't respond. The lively venue fell into an oppressive silence. I reached out and took the microphone from the officiant. He doesn't. My voice, calm and clear, struck like thunder. Marcel snapped his gaze back to me, visibly startled. The crowd gasped in shock. The officiant quickly tried to salvage the moment, opening his mouth to diffuse the tension, but I had already stepped off the stage. Descending slowly, I approached Rowena, ignoring the tears welling in her eyes. With deliberate movements, I removed my veil and placed it over Rowena's head amidst the bewildered stares of the guests. Startled by my sudden action, Rowena scrambled to her feet. Her face was pale, tears streaming down her cheeks. Perhaps she thought herself blameless in all this. But today, I was the bride. Why, then, was she wearing a white gown as well? I seized Rowena's wrist, gripping it firmly so she couldn't break free. She stumbled after me as I dragged her onto the stage. I shoved the bouquet into her hands. The room was dead silent. Marcel was the first to react, pulling Rowena to his side and shielding her protectively. His face was twisted in unconcealed disdain. I acted as though I hadn't noticed, turning to address the gathered crowd. Just as well, I don't either. I enunciated every word. As my statement echoed through the room, the screen displaying photos of Marcel and me flickered. When it lit up again, it showed images of Rowena and Marcel together. There they were, holding hands on the beach, kissing on a Ferris wheel, and even posing for elaborate wedding photos. The room buzzed with whispers and speculation. I smiled brightly, unfazed by the stares. My apologies, everyone, I said, voice steady. As you can see, the real stars of today's union aren't me and Marcel. It's my sister, Rowena. Chapter 2. My actions utterly humiliated the Sioux family. Marcel stood on the stage, his face flushed with embarrassment, while Rowena's complexion turned ghostly pale. As my father stormed out, many guests followed suit, leaving the Sioux family behind, muttering curses under their breath. The union was ultimately called off. The Sioux family's reputation in the business world plummeted, followed by a steep drop in their company's stock price. Marcel never expected I would expose his affair with Rowena so publicly. Under mounting public pressure, Marcel approached me, asking me to clarify the misunderstanding. I flatly refused. I carried on with my life as if nothing had happened, reporting the company's recent performance updates to my father as usual. What I didn't expect was for Marcel to show up at the Lynn family estate, bringing Rowena with him. When the butler led them in, I was lounging on the sofa. I glanced at them lazily. Rowena stood awkwardly, wringing her hands, while Marcel's expression was unreadable. My father waved for them to sit down. Rowena visibly relaxed, deliberately pulling Marcel to sit close to her. When she looked at me, her eyes betrayed thinly veiled resentment. Sister, you've misunderstood me. I swear, I never intended to ruin your wedding. Rowena's voice quivered, dripping with grievance, as if she was trying to explain herself. I shot her a dismissive glance. Before I could speak, Marcel cut in. Margarita, I admit this is my fault, he said, his tone filled with indignation. But you didn't have to disgrace the Sioux family like that. What good did it do you? Marcel's face was contorted with anger. I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. Weren't they here to apologize? It sounded more like they came to accuse me instead. And yet you had no problem disgracing Margarita? My father's fist slammed against the table with a resounding bang, making Marcel flinch. Marcel opened his mouth but quickly thought better of it, falling silent. Seeing this, Rowena shifted an inch away from Marcel, a weak attempt at distancing herself. I found it amusing. I started to scrutinize Rowena without a care, my gaze lingering until it landed on her abdomen. Rowena instinctively covered her stomach, a futile attempt to hide the obvious. I let out a derisive laugh. Father, let it go. I can't very well watch my sister have a child out of wedlock. Can I? Isn't that right, dear sister? Chapter 3. My words turned Rowena's face an ashen green. Marcel dropped all pretense, stepping in front of her protectively. My father's expression grew darker by the second. Rowena opened her mouth several times but didn't dare to speak. Finally, my father broke the silence, his tone icy. I know what you're after, but Margarita has been groomed as my successor since she was a child. She spent years overseas, receiving the best education to prepare her. The Lin family corporation will always belong to Margarita. Don't even think about taking what isn't yours. His words were harsh, but I relished every syllable. Rowena's tears began to fall, hitting her arms like broken beads, her resentment flashing in her eyes once again. Marcel frantically wiped her tears, pausing only to glare at me. I pretended not to notice, patting my father's hand in a silent plea for calm. Seeing my lack of concern, my father's expression softened slightly. Leave, he said, dismissing them. Rowena, humiliated, and Marcel, barely containing his anger, stood to leave. As they reached the door, my father sighed deeply, his face full of regret. If only Samuel were still here, he muttered. You should have married him. His words struck a chord, and my chest tightened with an ache I hadn't felt in years. Yes, I should have married him. I forced a smile for my father's sake, hoping to ease his worry. Hearing my father's remark, Marcel froze mid-step. He turned back, his gaze locking with mine from a distance, his brow furrowed as though he was piecing something together. Suddenly, his eyes widened in realization. Grabbing Rowena's arm, he hurriedly dragged her away. I watched Marcel's retreating figure, a smirk playing on my lips. Some secrets, after all, refused to stay hidden. Chapter 4. After leaving the estate, I walked alone to the parking lot. I had barely taken a few steps when Marcel appeared. He pinned me against the wall, his expression feral and furious. His arms caged me in, blocking any escape. Marcel's eyes were tinged red, his breath ragged as he leaned closer, his face mere inches from mine. I furrowed my brow, my stomach churning with nausea, like a wild beast provoked. Marcel suddenly seized my chin, his grip painful. In his eyes, I caught a glimmer of jealousy and rage. Margarita, what do you mean by this? I forced a smirk, my gaze dripping with disdain. My silent mockery pushed Marcel over the edge. With a snarl, he flung a stack of photos at me. The sharp edge of one cut my skin, and I felt the sting as blood welled up. Amid the scattered photos, one face caught my eye, the face I had longed for, a face I could never forget. I crouched down to pick them up. Don't you dare pick them up. Margarita. I said don't. Marcel roared as he grabbed my arm, trying to stop me. I wrenched free, ignoring his protests. Perhaps the hatred in my eyes was too glaring because Marcel froze, his grip loosening. I picked up each photo, one by one, examining them before gathering them neatly. In the end, Marcel slumped against the car, watching me in silence. His hands were clenched into fists, veins bulging with suppressed anger. I brushed the dust off the photos and approached him, step by deliberate step, mimicking his earlier actions. I gripped his chin firmly. I smiled, my voice cutting with each word, like a blade slicing through him. Marcel, what a pity. You'll never measure up to your uncle. Chapter 5. Marcel and I met because of a car accident. It was a severe one dead, one injured. Marcel was the lucky one, escaping with minor scratches. The unfortunate victim was his uncle, Samuel. Our first proper meeting was at Samuel's memorial service. It was also the first time I met Marcel's mother, her face streaked with tears. After the service, Marcel started asking to meet me frequently. Sometimes I agreed, sometimes I didn't. Later, He showed up with a bouquet of vibrant roses, kneeling on one knee to confess his feelings. I toyed with him, refusing to give a clear answer. When the Sue family's business began to falter, I stepped in to help them recover. Seizing the opportunity, the Sue family proposed a marriage alliance. I didn't refuse. I hadn't yet gotten what I wanted. Chapter 6. After leaving Marcel behind, I drove to the cemetery. The closer I got to the gravestone, the harder it was to hold back my tears. Though I had visited just yesterday, it felt like an eternity had passed. After fleeing the wedding, I came here. I wanted him to see me in my wedding dress. The dress was one he had custom designed for me years ago, back when we were together. Even the decorations at the wedding venue had been planned by the two of us. He was Samuel, the Samuel who had died in that car accident, Marcel's uncle. I sat against the gravestone, my fingers gently tracing the cool, smooth surface of his photo. The chill beneath my fingertips was a constant reminder that he was gone. He had been gone for so long. They say nephews often resemble their uncles, and Marcel was almost a mirror image of Samuel. But aside from his looks, Marcel was nothing like Samuel. Samuel and I had met abroad. At the time, my parents had sent me overseas to study finance and business management. Samuel happened to be my professor. The first time I saw him, he was wearing gold-rimmed glasses, his loosely buttoned shirt revealing his collarbones. I couldn't help but swallow, a reaction he teased me about for weeks. But I didn't care. I was shamelessly drawn to him. In that foreign land, I came to depend on Samuel. I, who once hated storms, started praying for thunder and lightning. All it took was a whispered, "Professor, I'm scared," and Samuel would appear at my side. Samuel was 9 years older than me. We were together for 4 years abroad. When we returned home, Samuel told me he wanted to take me to meet the most important woman in his life, his sister Patricia, Marcel's mother. The day Samuel died, we had plans. I was eagerly waiting for him to pick me up when the news of his car accident reached me. Samuel had died on his way to see me. Chapter 7. I spread out the photos Marcel had gathered, laying them one by one before Samuel's gravestone. Tears splashed onto the glossy prints until exhaustion took over, leaving me hollow. On the eve of the wedding, I got what I wanted: evidence of the truth behind Samuel's car accident. But I couldn't tell him. I stared at the gravestone in silence, Marcel's parting words echoing in my mind. "Margarita, don't overestimate yourself. The Sue family will never grovel at your feet." I had long known the Sue family had planted a spy around me. That was how Marcel managed to uncover my relationship with Samuel in just 2 hours and throw it in my face. I endured their petty schemes for years, until Rowena appeared. Rowena showed up unexpectedly, claiming she was my half-sister. I immediately sensed manipulation at play, like a cat watching a mouse. I observed her carefully. As expected, Marcel began secretly meeting with Rowena. When I confronted him with proof of their rendezvous, Marcel quickly caved. "Margarita, I swear, there's nothing between Rowena and me. Please believe me." I looked at that face so eerily similar to Samuel's and said nothing. They had been scheming all along. Scheming against Samuel, my father, and me. I couldn't help but let out a derisive laugh. Fine. New grievances. Old scores, we'd settle them all. Chapter 8. Marcel worked hard to suppress news of the wedding. Rumors were replaced by glowing articles about him and Rowena. A perfect match. A union of two powerful families. Marcel began parading Rowena at business galas. Rowena, in turn, publicly declared herself the heiress of the Lynn family. The controversy was relentless. Using this newfound status, Rowena secured several lucrative deals for Marcel. The Sue family's name surged in prestige. Marcel and Rowena thrived in their newfound fame. Meanwhile, reporters swarmed outside the Lynn Group's headquarters, cameras flashing, demanding answers. Some even camped outside our family estate. My father wanted to issue a public statement, but I stopped him. Silence was the best weapon. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, I gazed at the towering skyscrapers and smirked. The higher you climb, the harder the fall. A knock at the door broke my reverie. A few of my father's old friends, longtime collaborators with Lynn Group, entered the room, their faces lined with frustration. "Margarita, what's going on?" The rumors are getting out of hand. And this Rowena, is she really your sister? I nodded, then shook my head. These were men who had watched me grow up. Men I'd grown closer to after taking on more responsibilities within the company over the past year. We brewed tea and chatted casually. In a few words, we exchanged vital information. Marcel had set his sights on a newly developed AI project, traditionally focused on real estate. The Sue family was desperate to branch out into new industries, but AI required immense capital. To free himself from Lin Group's financial grip, Marcel launched round after round of funding. We clinked teacups and exchanged knowing smiles. Let's see who wins. Chapter 9. Marcel's new venture grew rapidly. Multiple rounds of funding brought in billions, earning his company a reputation as a rising tech star. I watched clips of Marcel's interviews looping on my screen, feeling oddly pleased. A car pulled up outside Lin Group's headquarters. A man and a woman stepped out, arms linked in a display of affection. I curled my lips into a smile, gazing down at them from above. Finally, you're here, Marcel. Marcel strode into the conference room, Rowena trailing behind him. Her 5-month pregnancy was becoming evident. Wasting no time, Marcel handed me a letter. My fingers drummed idly on the desk as I signaled my secretary to take the letter and stamp it. The swift, decisive motion made Marcel's breath catch. You're not even going to read it? His voice was tinged with uncertainty. But I was certain. A year ago, when the Sue family teetered on the brink, Lin Group had bailed them out, becoming their largest shareholder. The Sue family and Lin Group were now inextricably linked. If Marcel wanted a clean break, he needed Lin Group to sell its shares. I let out a soft chuckle. Fine, a clean break. My words darkened Marcel's gaze. A clean break? You're that eager to cut ties with me? He spoke through gritted teeth. Rowena paled, swaying slightly on her feet. I couldn't help but laugh. If that's how you want to see it, so be it. Anger flared on Marcel's face as he pulled Rowena closer. Margarita, you've seen the news. You'd better think carefully. I had thought carefully. I instructed my secretary to ensure everything was settled with Marcel. Marcel stormed out, his expression livid. My mood, however, soared. Chapter 10. Marcel's fortune continued to rise, and at every gala, he was the center of attention. As I leaned against the bar, lost in thought, Marcel approached me with calm confidence. He clinked his glass against mine, the crisp sound breaking through my reverie. The swirling red liquid in his glass reminded me of the blood spilled on the ground that fateful day. In a fleeting moment, my mind drifted back to Samuel. Marcel's gaze burned into me as he drained his glass in one gulp. Do you regret it now, seeing what I've accomplished? He asked. I placed the glass he had touched back on the counter and moved to leave. Margarita! His voice turned urgent. Margarita, why did you agree to marry me back then? He tried to hide the tremor in his voice, but I caught it. I turned to him with a bright, mocking smile. Why? Because it's what you and your mother wanted, wasn't it? My sharp gaze cut through him, exposing his every secret. You knew? Marcel took a step back, panic flickering in his eyes. I shook my head lightly, as if dismissing the idea. Marcel, now that the purpose of the marriage alliance has been fulfilled, stop bothering me. With that, I strode away. Of course, I knew what he meant. I knew everything, both what I should and shouldn't have known. Chapter 11. After the financial settlement, the company quickly issued a statement confirming the withdrawal of Lin Group's investment in Sue Group. My father also made a public clarification. The rumors, which had been raging for months, finally subsided. Yes, from the beginning, I had always been my father's only recognized heir. Rowena was merely an illegitimate child, one her own father never acknowledged. The Sue family, now back on solid ground, didn't care about her. When the marriage alliance was announced, the Sue family had already made a significant profit. Rowena came to cause trouble a few times, but my father threw her out each time. With Marcel's new company preparing to go public, I made my move. When mice scurry around unchecked, sometimes they need to be scared back into hiding. Lin Group launched an aggressive campaign against Sue Group, triggering a chain reaction. It set off a firestorm among Marcel's prospective investors. causing them all to back out. The collapse of his funding chain led to the failure of his latest round of financing. But artificial intelligence requires enormous investment for product development and market expansion. Marcel's tech company suffered a severe blow. Moreover, the real estate project Sue Group had taken from Lin Group stalled entirely. For a while, Marcel had been smug about his accomplishments, but now he was panicking. He called me several times, but I ignored every one. Rowena, heavily pregnant, came to plead with me in person. Marcel's mother, Patricia, even forced Rowena to threaten me, claiming she'd expose my father's infidelity and Rowena's status as his illegitimate child. I sent Rowena away with just a few words. Take care of yourself. Chapter 12. Patricia didn't have the chance to go to the media with her threats about my father. Marcel's company collapsed before she could act. Desperate for funds, Marcel embezzled money from the Sue family business and funneled it into his tech company. The scandal was exposed by an insider. Although the Sue family refused to confirm the allegations, several investment firms were brought in for questioning. Marcel's company came under intense scrutiny. Suddenly, he was drowning in a tide of scandals. The business and tech industries alike mocked Marcel openly. Claims of pseudo-innovation, plagiarized promotional videos, and falsified credentials of key personnel tarnished his company's reputation. Marcel's project was branded as pseudotech. In the end, he couldn't withstand the crushing weight of financial and technological pressures. Overnight, his empire crumbled, leaving nothing but ruins. The tech company went bankrupt, and Marcel's name became synonymous with disgrace. Without Lin Group's support, the Sue family's other businesses also faltered. Combined with Marcel's massive embezzlement, they were beyond saving. A wave of frustration tightened in my chest. I went to see Samuel. The midnight wind howled as I pulled my coat tighter around me. Sitting before Samuel's gravestone, I drank and cried. Samuel's dream had been to help Marcel safeguard the Sue family business until Marcel was ready to stand on his own. I had done the opposite of what Samuel would have wanted, but I didn't regret it. I spent the night talking to him, pouring my heart out until the first light of dawn appeared. In my haze, I thought I saw Samuel. His eyes brimmed with sadness and disappointment as his figure faded into the distance. I knew it. Samuel must blame me. Otherwise, why hadn't he visited me in over a year? And why did he choose to appear now? Pale and trembling, I reached out into the empty air, trying in vain to grasp something that wasn't there. I collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Samuel, you must blame me. Please don't. Please, don't blame me. Chapter 13. The first time I heard about Marcel wasn't after the car accident. It was through Samuel's stories. Samuel had always talked about his nephew, Marcel. He liked to compare us, calling both Marcel and me hopelessly clumsy. Even after we got together, Samuel would occasionally mention his sister Patricia. It was one of the rare times Samuel showed a softer side. Outside of his affection for me, I believed Samuel deeply loved his sister. Samuel often said Patricia had a hard life. Their parents died young, leaving Patricia to marry an older man, Marcel's father, just to provide for her younger brother. When Marcel's father passed away, Patricia was left to manage the crumbling Sue family business while caring for both Marcel and Samuel. Samuel, driven and capable, balanced his studies with helping Patricia run the company. Later, Patricia sent him abroad for further education. When I returned to the country after graduation, Samuel resigned from his teaching position overseas. The Sue family business was in trouble, and Samuel, worried about Patricia, decided to return to help. After coming back, I took over Lin Group, while Samuel devoted himself to supporting the Sue family. He worked tirelessly, sacrificing his time and energy. None of us could have foreseen that his gratitude and loyalty would ultimately cost him his life. Sitting on the ground, I gazed at the star-filled night sky. My heart clenched and twisted in pain. I loathed the truth I had uncovered. I mourned the injustice done to Samuel. Chapter 14. Samuel's death wasn't an accident. That day, Marcel got into an argument with Samuel in the car. In a fit of rage, he tried to wrest the steering wheel from Samuel's hands. No one noticed the truck speeding toward them. If Samuel hadn't swerved at the last moment, redirecting the car's trajectory, it would have been Marcel who died that day. After the crash, The police quickly sealed off the scene. By the time I arrived, all I could see was carnage. I felt as though my entire body had been filled with lead, leaving me paralyzed. I gasped for air, Samuel's presence seeming to fade with every breath I took. But I couldn't find him. When I finally reached the hospital, Samuel had already been pronounced dead and sent to the morgue. As I passed the patient rooms, I saw Patricia. She sat beside her son, Marcel, fussing over him and sobbing uncontrollably. I saw Marcel too, lying in bed without a scratch worth mentioning. I had my father call the hospital administration. Alone, I walked into the morgue. My hands trembled as I lifted the white sheet. Samuel's face was covered in blood. He lay there, motionless. He hated being dirty, yet now his face was stained and grimy. I tried speaking to him, but he didn't respond. I used my sleeve to wipe his face, but the more I wiped, the worse it got. Frustrated, I struck myself. Why was I so incompetent that I couldn't even clean his face? I begged Samuel to open his eyes and look at me, but he stayed silent. His body grew colder and stiffer. Only then did I realize Samuel had left me for good. Chapter 15. On the day of Samuel's funeral, the Sue family didn't make a grand affair of it. Patricia leaned against Marcel's shoulder, her tears flowing endlessly. I wanted to console her. She was Samuel's most cherished and respected sister. As I approached them, ready to speak, I overheard their conversation. In that moment, it felt like I had fallen into an icy abyss. Mom, why didn't you warn me about what you arranged? You nearly got me killed. Mom, why did Uncle have to meddle in our family business? The police won't find out, right? How was I supposed to know you'd be in his car? I didn't mean for him to die, it was just bad luck. Remember, Marcel, it was the driver's drunk driving. It had nothing to do with you. It was your uncle's fault for losing control of the wheel. You're a victim too. Marcel's tone was impatient, devoid of any grief. He didn't shed a single tear. Patricia, meanwhile, sobbed theatrically while reassuring him. I couldn't believe my ears. What had Patricia arranged? What did she mean by "I didn't mean for him to die"? My mind was shrouded in confusion until my vision blurred. The sharp pain of my nails digging into my palms reminded me it was all real. I used money to grease the wheels and gained access to the crematorium. I watched Samuel's body enter the furnace with my own eyes. I saw the flames engulf him, inch by inch, until he was gone. My hatred burned as fiercely as the fire. Samuel would never know that all his efforts had been in vain. Patricia and Marcel didn't need him. They even saw him as a threat. He would never know that the sister he adored had such a venomous heart, and he would never know that Patricia had played a role in his death. At that moment, I felt a twisted sense of relief. At least Samuel would never find out. Otherwise, it would have broken his heart. Chapter 16. 2 months later, Marcel entered my office again. This time, he wasn't accompanied by Rowena. He brought his mother, Patricia. Patricia was dressed impeccably in a tailored dress, exuding elegance and poise, but I knew the filth that lay beneath her polished facade. Patricia took my hand with feigned affection, her eyes brimming with tears. Marcel sat stiffly to the side, lips pressed into a tight line, saying nothing. Margarita, are you still angry with me? Patricia's voice was probing, tentative. I glanced at her briefly before withdrawing my hand. My stance was clear. Patricia tried again, softening her tone and lowering herself further. Margarita, it was wrong of us to embarrass you at the wedding. It was all Marcel's fault. I've already punished him severely. I looked up at her, my tone dripping with sarcasm. Oh, and how exactly did you punish him? Caught off guard by my bluntness, Patricia hesitated. She rubbed her hands awkwardly, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. Margarita, Rowena is your sister, after all, and she's pregnant now. Patricia paused, casting a glance at Marcel, whose expression darkened further. She pressed on. Margarita, I beg you, can you help us? Just give the Sue family a chance to recover. I curled my lips into a mocking smile. Even now, Patricia thought I had turned against the Sue family solely because of the wedding. Her hypocrisy churned my stomach, suppressing the urge to vomit. I spoke with cool detachment. No. Chapter 17. I excused myself, saying I needed to use the restroom. Once I left the office, I gave my secretary a subtle look and headed to the surveillance room. On the monitor, Patricia was pressing against the office door, ensuring no one entered. She gestured animatedly at Marcel while spewing vile insults about me. Meanwhile, Marcel sat at my desk, confidently typing on the keyboard. He entered the password and unlocked my computer. On the screen were Lynn Group's proposals for a new real estate development project. The project was government-backed, with significant potential for urban planning. The Sue family was banking on this project for a comeback. Initially, I had no intention of pursuing it, but since the Sue family was so desperate, I decided to play along. I watched as Marcel pulled a USB drive from his pocket and swiftly copied the files. His actions were efficient and deliberate, as if he had planned this for weeks. When they finally sat back on the sofa, my secretary knocked on the office door. Hearing the secretary's report that I was in a meeting, Marcel visibly relaxed. Patricia shot the secretary a knowing look and quickly led Marcel out of the office. What they didn't know was that the secretary wasn't their spy. He was mine. I had deliberately planted misleading information about the project around Marcel, giving them the impression there was still a chance to turn things around. The password and the proposal on my computer were bait, carefully crafted for their trap. And, of course, my office was equipped with hidden cameras. Every step they took was another strand of the web tightening around them. Chapter 18. On the day of the project bidding, I attended as a silent observer. Marcel presented his proposal confidently, a slightly reworked version of the bait I had left for him. His pitch was polished, and the audience seemed impressed. At the end of his presentation, Marcel shot me a smug glance, his expression full of self-assurance. Little did he know, I had no interest in the project from the start. The result was predictable. Marcel secured the deal with the developers. Feigning disappointment, I left the venue, my heart soaring with excitement. Desperate to fund the project, Marcel secured another round of financing at a high cost. Patricia even mortgaged all of her properties. On the day construction began, Marcel and Patricia had just finished the ribbon-cutting ceremony when the work was abruptly halted. A crowd of furious locals swarmed the site, trapping Marcel and Patricia in the chaos. Before the police could intervene, they were shoved and manhandled, emerging disheveled and pale. When government officials finally arrived to mediate, Patricia looked like she had seen a ghost. Marcel demanded to know why construction was stopped, shouting at the officials. Patiently, they explained the situation. Patricia fainted on the spot, and Marcel collapsed into a chair, stunned. During the initial research phase, I had discovered the project's flaws, but Marcel, blinded by ambition, failed to conduct due diligence. The site was part of a disputed government relocation project, with unresolved conflicts involving displaced residents. The project documents Marcel received, from land use permits to construction approvals, were all expired or forged. By the time construction began, the developers had already absconded with the funds. The Sue family was finished. Chapter 19. With Patricia's properties mortgaged, the creditors evicted them from their homes. Marcel, Patricia, and Rowena were forced to move into a small apartment Marcel had once used for secret trysts with Rowena. Heavily pregnant, Rowena couldn't handle the cramped conditions. Patricia, already stressed and irritable, showed little patience for Rowena's emotions. Their constant bickering escalated until, during one argument, Rowena was accidentally pushed to the ground. At the hospital, the fully formed baby was delivered stillborn. Rowena broke down completely. When I arrived at the hospital, Marcel and Patricia were slumped in the hallway, their faces gray with exhaustion and despair. The moment Marcel saw me, his expression lit up with desperate hope. He rushed toward me, pulling me into a tight embrace before I could react. His voice trembled, weary and pleading. "Margarita, I was wrong. Let's reconcile, please. Help me." Disgusted, I shoved him away. My secretary, ever prepared, handed me a disinfectant wipe from his bag. "Filthy," I muttered, wiping my hands. Marcel's face flushed red, then turned pale, his eyes darkening with hatred. His gaze burned with unspoken rage. After instructing my secretary to return to the company, Marcel snapped, like a man possessed. He lunged at me, his hands wrapping around my neck. As the air thinned, my vision blurred. But before he could do any real harm, Marcel was thrown to the ground. The police had arrived. I had called them beforehand, with the surveillance footage from my office. I accused Marcel and Patricia of stealing trade secrets and attempted murder. As they were dragged away in handcuffs, they hurled insults at me. Before they were out of sight, I delivered my final blow. By the way, I've acquired the Sue family business for next to nothing. Watching their faces twist in horror and defeat, I couldn't help but laugh. Mice were always meant to be caught by the cat. Chapter 20. Marcel hired a lawyer to defend them, attempting to seek my forgiveness multiple times, but I refused every time. During the final pretrial mediation, I stood face to face with them. To my surprise, Rowena was there as well. She cried as she clung to my leg, her frail frame trembling, likely just out of the hospital. She looked haggard and weak. I frowned and tried to push her away, but she clung to me with a death grip. "Sister, I'm your real sister," she sobbed. "Take me home, please." Her voice was thick with desperation, but I shook my head. Reaching into my bag, I pulled out a document and threw it at her feet. "Real sister? Are you talking about her?" As my words fell, Patricia's face drained of color, her terror palpable. Rowena had been brought into my life by Patricia. It was Patricia who had orchestrated her appearance, who had pushed her into my father's life. Even the paternity test had been forged by Patricia. But I had uncovered the truth long ago. Rowena wasn't my sister. She wasn't even my father's child. Patricia's schemes to take control of Lynn Group's assets knew no bounds. Rowena stared at the genuine paternity test in her hands, collapsing to the ground in shock. What I didn't expect was for Patricia, once so proud, to suddenly fall to her knees with a loud thud. I instinctively stepped aside. Patricia lowered her head repeatedly, apologizing profusely, dragging Marcel down with her. She forced him to kneel as well. Watching their display of regret, I felt nothing but revulsion, like a ghost seeking vengeance. I leaned in close, my voice a chilling whisper in their ears. "Did you think about this day when you plotted against Samuel and Lynn Group? Go and repay Samuel with your lives." Patricia stared at me in disbelief. I curled my lips into a cold smile and delivered my final blow. "Did I mention I was Samuel's fiancé?" Chapter 21. I handed the evidence surrounding Samuel's accident over to the police. The complete chain of evidence left Patricia speechless. The truck driver was a gambler who had accepted a $1 million bribe from Patricia to orchestrate the accident. The original plan was to crash Samuel's car just enough to leave him injured. But Marcel's interference turned it into a tragedy. At the time, Patricia feigned shock and claimed mental instability to avoid heavy scrutiny. The driver was sentenced to just 7 years. Patricia had been meticulous, hiding the evidence of her crime and securing the driver's silence even in prison. It had taken me years of maneuvering and a significant effort to get the truth from the driver. Before I could fully gather the evidence, Patricia had brought Rowena into play, her eyes glinting with greed. I played along, curious to see how far she would go, pretending to be ignorant. I watched as they schemed against me just as they had schemed against Samuel. Each revelation about their betrayal froze my heart anew. I decided to lift them to dizzying heights, only to tear the ground out from beneath them. I would destroy them, ensuring their disgrace for the rest of their lives. Leaving the courthouse that day, I finally exhaled. "Samuel, I've avenged you. Please don't blame me for acting on my own." Chapter 22. When it was all over, I visited Samuel again. Leaves had fallen across his grave, and I carefully cleared them away. He had always loved cleanliness. I placed a large bouquet of blue statice on his gravestone, its soft fragrance filling the air. I wanted to tell him that my love for him would never die. Leaning against his gravestone, tears streamed down my face. "Samuel, I miss you so much," I whispered, stroking his photograph. "I'm sorry, Samuel," I said, my voice choking with sobs. "Samuel, you never got to propose to me. I told them I was your fiancé. You wouldn't be mad, would you?" "Samuel, look at this. Doesn't it look familiar?" From my bag, I retrieved a ring and slipped it onto my finger. The funeral director had given it to me, saying it had fallen from Samuel's pocket. After returning home, I fell gravely ill. In my fevered dreams, Samuel finally came to see me. It had been so long, but he had come. The sky was adorned with countless stars, like diamonds scattered across a galaxy. Blue flowers lined a luminous path leading to the stage. Amid the starry sea, Samuel appeared in a crisp white suit, holding a bouquet of pure white staticy. He knelt before me, producing a diamond ring from his pocket. "Margarita," he asked, his voice tender, "will you marry me in our next life?" Dressed in the wedding gown he had designed for me, I wept as I replied, "Samuel, I will."